first, when we are talking about a frame, let's first identify what are the different elements created in the frame that actually demand our visual attention. So start identifying them. So the first element would be this person right smack in the middle. So it's quite hard to miss. Right after identifying the element in an image, we can dive in deeper as to what makes the person or the element stand out further. So currently it will be the tonal contrast of this person with the background. So we can see that he's wearing these brown khakis, which is in contrast with the greens and the blue background over here. So that creates a lot of tonal contrast, hence enhancing and making the element grab more attention to it. The next element would be cropped towards the left, and that is due to the fact that it is closer to the picture frame, and also due to the fact that it takes up a lot of visual spread in this image, and the scale of the crop is quite large in comparison to the entire frame. So that is the second element of attention. Third would be this card in line with this crop towards the right, and both of them kind of merge together. So they can be identified as a single element altogether. So predominantly, there are three elements in this image that demand our attention, with the amount of negative and like breathing space towards the top, which is of a devoid and detailless sky, and also this pathway over here. When we look at the face of the person, we get to see that the eye has an implied sense of direction to it, and that is reinforced with this pointing hand. And as both of them are pointing towards in the same direction, it amplifies it. But there is another vector that is working currently on this person. It would be the, this plane over here. So if you look at this plane, he's pointing his body towards the left, whereas the face and the hand are pointing towards the right of the image. Hence, it introduces and makes it a bit more dynamic in total. And what are the other leading lines? Again, that is a very broad term. So, a leading line is any visual aid that helps guide our eye across the frame. On a side note, leading line can be implied or physically present. So in this, there is no physical sense of a leading line. It is implied towards the left of the frame. Whereas over here, there is a sharp edge separating the sky with the crops over here. Hence, it is much more concrete as a leading line, and it guides our attention back to the person who's located in the middle. There is another technique of the perspective lines, which in turn act like leading lines, but the perspective lines' main focus is to identify or give a sense of depth rather than guiding our eyeline. The main priority of the perspective line is to depict depth in an image. If we were to divide this image into the three grounds, which is the foreground, middle ground, and background, it would be obviously this element is in the foreground because again of the tonal contrast of this element with the other background elements that are located and surrounding it. That being said, a particular element that is foreground in nature, such as this chunk of crop over here, as it takes up a lot of visual space in this image, it is considered to be a foreground element, but as it moves inside the frame, that same element can be denoted as a midground element or a background element. So in this image, this clump of crop and the this is supposed to be the middle ground, whereas the background would be this dark tree over here and also the sky. Last but not the least, let's talk about the mechanism of balance in this image. If we were to look at the overall image, we can see that it is mildly center weighted. For the main subject in this image is located in the central axis. But if you see this line of action is protruding towards the right side. So it introduces visual weight to the image. Now, for visual weight, the entire mechanism is focused on attention. So a small object, although it does not occupy a large amount of space in an image, can have a lot more visual weight if it is contrasting in nature. So it is much more important to think of visual weight in the terms of attention that it grabs. So in this, let's break down the different elements and think about the visual weight. So this is adding visual weight because it grabs our attention on the start, but it is counteracted with the sheer amount of uh, crops that are located towards the left because it takes up a larger chunk of frame. So that in turn kind of cancels out the right, like the hand protruding out. Now coming to the other elements such as this cart and the crop over here, both of them are acting. Let's assume that both of them are a single mass and shape, and I would still say the object and the frame is still a bit left leaning due to the presence of this negative space over here and here. So that helps ease down the space towards the right and makes it a bit left heavy. Although compositionally image is in equilibrium, but still I would say it is a bit leaning towards left. So there you have it. Those are a few underlying composition mechanisms that were working underneath this image. So hope you found this helpful. Catch you again next time. Bye.